Hello, everyone. This is Byron K. Ward, and welcome to another episode of Business Leadership with Action. We're here with exemplary leaders in our business community, and we always have stories of men and women of color, especially highlighting the examples of business excellence from African Americans. So sit back and enjoy today's positive story of success, leadership, and money and inspiration. I am so excited today to host this program. And our guest, Mr. Kim L. Hunter. Mr. Hunter is the CEO of Lagrant Communications Incorporated, chairman and CEO of the Lagrant Foundation, and managing partner of KLH and Associates, and all while serving as a director on many boards. Wow. I don't recall having interviewed anyone with so many irons in the fire recently. Welcome, Kim. Did I get it right so far?
You did indeed.
Well, welcome to us.
It's good to be here.
You said you're familiar with Ventura County and Santa Barbara County?
I am. I like to refer to as the Tri-County, that being Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo, yes.
And we call it the Tri-County region as well. Yeah. But we're so glad to have you in studio today.
It's good to be here.
It's always great to have someone on that's not from the local area, but is familiar with the area.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been in Southern California. I've been in Los Angeles for 36 years this past October 20th. I've been in the same home for 35 years of the 36 and a half years I've been living in Southern California. So I do have a presence in Santa Barbara. I have several properties there, and I've had a home. My second home is in Santa Barbara for the last 7 years.
Okay. So I know in our communication, it seems like you have a fairly regular schedule of going back and forth.
Yes, I was doing that every week. I would come up Thursday after 8 p.m. and go back Sunday after 60 minutes.
Now, do you prefer the 101 or are you a Highway 1 person?
Well, everybody's a Highway 1, but there's no way I'm going to take Highway 1 if I want to get from point A to point B. So I'm going to take 101. But again, I avoid the traffic because I'm leaving after 8 p.m. on both directions.
Got you. Well, we are glad you took the time to drive up today and join us here in the studio here at 99.3. And, of course, we're now in the Greg Ward studios. And so welcome again.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, on our show, we like to, I call it, start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing, and your family situation?
Sure. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, so I'm one of 11 children. I'm the only college educated and one of the few with a high school diploma. Both my parents are dead and gone. My father died at 50, so hence the reason why I celebrate it every year, particularly after 50. I'm now 61 years old, so I'm a baby boomer, but I am from a large family. I don't necessarily advocate that, but I'm one of 11 children. I'm number 9.
Wow. And you certainly don't look like you're 60 years old.
61.
Plus.
I like to.
Plus.
I'm 4 years shy of Medicare.
Okay.
That's what I tell people.
There you go. So how did you find your way to Los Angeles? And
by way of Seattle. So I left Philadelphia in 1979, and I was recruited by 8 campuses across the country. I selected and landed on the University of Washington, which was back then a Pac-10, which is now back to being a Pac-10. So I went from Philly to Seattle, spent 3.5 years there, undergraduate school. I graduated early with an undergrad in business with a focus in marketing and a minor in anthropology.
Fast tracker, no doubt.
So I left. I was recruited off campus. They moved me to LA into market research by a company called American Hospital Supply Corporation, which doesn't exist. It was acquired by Baxter Travenol and rebranded Baxter. So they moved me into market research in LA in 1982. And then the president of the division I worked for, I'll never forget it, Dick Gillen said, Kim, we have an opportunity in the Twin Cities. And I said, the Twin Cities? I said, isn't that where Mary Tyler Moore threw her hat on Lake Calhoun? And he looked at me and he said, how do you know that? I said, well, I was a big fan of Mary Tyler Moore's show. And I was literally back then in the early 80s, corporate America would move you quickly. And when I said yes, they moved me, packed up my car, shipped it, and I was on a plane to the Twin Cities. So I was there for 3.5 years while I was there. The company paid for my graduate degree, so I have a master's in international management with an emphasis in Latin America. So my passion, my romance is Latin America from a business perspective and a personal perspective.
Wow. So we fast forwarded there. So what was your childhood like? Did you have business interests? You're a fast tracker, so was that due to the influence of your parents or?
Not at all. Both my parents were not. No, both my parents didn't finish high school. No, and most of my siblings didn't even finish high school. I will tell you, I knew early that education was my ticket out of the inner city. And I focused on academics. I was very focused and very, very, very committed to my education. And I took a lot of classes when I was in high school. I went to the #1 high school in Philly, which still remains this very day, is public. And I'm very proud of that. So education is my big thing, hence the reason why I started an educational foundation. But no, my upbringing was not necessarily exposed to business, but I was selling. And if anything, I do sell. And for all my enterprises, I'm always selling something. So I was selling candy in the community.
Okay.
I learned to use a cash register in the neighborhood market. So for me, business was not necessarily a venue in which I was going to direct. My focus was to become a veterinarian. So I took all the sciences in junior high and high school, chemistry, biology, physics, and I did all of that when I was in high school and junior high. So my intent in all the schools I applied to, all 8 of them, it was to go on to become a veterinarian. The challenge or the change of heart is when I landed in my freshman year. And I did like most freshmen, and I encourage people, experiment. So I entered with the intent of being a veterinarian. So I was a zoology major. I switched to zoology to poli-sci with the intent of becoming a lawyer. Okay. And then I switched it my last quarter because we were in a quarter system at the UW. And I switched to business, and I stayed with business my entire time I was at the university.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So you talked about your high school. Mm-hmm. Were you focused on academics? Did you participate in other activities, sports? Mm-hmm. Or?
Byron, I will tell you, my high school was the change agent of my life. I have no doubt I am where I am today because of my high school. Why? It was the #1 high school in Philadelphia back then in the 60s and 70s, and it still is to this very day. The only difference is the U.S. Supreme Court in 1983 made the high school co-ed. It was an all-boys school, and it was then a woman and her parents sued my high school because we had the academics that Girls High, which still remains an all-girls school, and is #2 in the city. But yeah, it was unequivocally, academics was the #1 thing because in order to get in, you had to have top grades. Right. Now, I will tell you, it was not my first choice. Things happen for a reason. I applied to Overbrook, which was the 3rd best school in Philly. Okay. And it was the Overbrook Scholars Program. They denied me admission. I went to my career counselor and I said, what am I going to do? I would be a statistic if I wound up going to Bartram, which was the neighborhood school in Philly. And she said, Kim, I told you then, and I'll tell you now, apply to Central. I said, I want to go to an all-boys school. I want to go to Overbrook. And I applied to Central. My name was at the top of the list, and it was the change agent of my life.
Wow. And so while in the school was 100% focus on the academics?
Oh, unequivocally. It was, again, Central remains the #1 public school in Philadelphia to this very day. We're going on 5, 6, literally decades. So, and a lot of people who are very successful to this very day graduated from that high school. But yes, academics was the #1.
Of course, we know a lot of the names of people that went to Overbrook, of course.
Yes.
Including, I think, Will Smith and Will Chamberlain.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you chose the public school, the
Well, I wouldn't say I chose public school.
chose
Both
you.
my parents were, as I mentioned, highly uneducated. They didn't have the resources to put me in a private school, nor was I interested in a private school because I didn't really know much about private schools. But it was public, and I was very proud to be a product of the public school.
Got it. And what about the experience in Seattle?
Oh, incredible. And again, I went to Seattle only because it was the furthest way I can get from, one, Philadelphia, and two, my family.
Okay.
I was very determined because all the schools I applied to, and I'm an Eastern at heart, they were all based on the East Coast with the exception of a few. And at the end of the day, I had read a Time magazine article in 1978 about 13 and 14-year-olds running around on campus at the University of Washington. And I said, that's fascinating. Read the article. I wound up applying. They had a great zoology program that prepped you for veterinary school. I applied, got in. And when it came down to it, it came down to Ithaca, New York, or Seattle, Washington. Ithaca was Cornell. And I had visited Cornell. And I said, no, this is a little too close to home. And I had no desire to be in Ithaca. And literally, I got on my first flight in 1979, Philly to Chicago, Seattle, and I've never looked back.
Wow, that's a great story. You went to what was the name of the school where you got your master's degree?
The University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, when I got my degree still says the College of St. Thomas. It's a private Catholic Irish school, but it's been renamed University of St. Thomas.
Okay, now how did you get to that school?
Well, I was living in the Twin Cities, and at that time, the College of St. Thomas launched a program called the Masters of International Management. There were only 3 schools across the country offering that school. One is the prestigious Thunderbird, which is no longer separate, is now part of Arizona State University.
Okay.
And then you had Tufts, had a great international program, and then the College of St. Thomas. And I had always viewed myself as an international kind of guy. I know my ultimate job in my career as I phase out is an international assignment.
Interesting. So we'll stick a pin in that and see what if you've used that experience yet in your many business ventures. But let's take a brief moment here to do a pause for the cause, so to speak. And we want to remind everyone that this show should air on November the 12th in our regular time slot. We're recording it on November 11th. But we want to remind everyone to get your tickets for the upcoming benefit concert honoring Greg Ward. And the event will be at the Oxnard College Performing Arts Building on November 12th, 3 o'clock p.m. Tickets are available on any of our websites. We've got 99threefm.com. We've got the-cac.org. And they're also available on Ticket Sauce at 99threefmconcert.ticketsauce.com. So there are many ways to get the tickets. We hope you come out and support our big fundraising event of the year. And we're talking about Community Advocacy Coalition and 99.3 FM. And also we won't forget the support we lend with Byron K. Ward presents Business Leadership with Action, as I'm actually promoting that event. So we're here with a very distinguished and well-accomplished gentleman today, Mr. Kim Hunter. So we've brought you through your childhood and your education. Mm-hmm. And man, I'm really looking forward to hearing about these many ventures you're engaged with. So you got the business degree while you were working, and you got the entrepreneur bug. Tell us about that.
Well, you're talking about the Masters in International Management, which is equivalent to an MBA, but it's just an international focus. So instead of finance. It was international finance. Instead of law, it's international law. So I decided to get that degree. My intent was not necessarily when I got that degree to transition to an international assignment. That was more long-term than short-term. My passion, I've been to 6 of the 7 continents. I have traveled all 50 states in the Union by the age of 28. It was a goal of mine. But I just love the international arena. And in my graduate program, you had to focus. So it was either Africa, Asia, Latin America, and I chose Latin America. So we're talking about really the focus of South America as opposed to all of Latin America, which starts in Mexico south.
Okay. So how'd you end up in your own business?
Well, that was, I will tell you quite clearly, I worked for corporate America for 7.5 years. I had an agency, an advertising agency that reported to me on my products that I represented. And I was always intrigued about more of the creative process.
That was in the pharmaceutical industry.
No, it was what we call healthcare packaged goods. Baxter has a part that's pharma, but it was a healthcare.
Okay.
So I worked for that corporation, which was a Fortune 200 to this very day, for 7.5 years. And I got a bug on the creative side because when you're a market manager, you're focused on your products and your products only. And what I wanted to do was have a much broader perspective and impact the bottom line. And I was intrigued by the advertising agency that worked with me. So I kept having these dinners and conversations with him, and he realized I got the bug. And so what happened was one day I decided that I wanted to transition from being on the what we call the client side to the agency side. So I quit corporate America, took 6 months off, and then made a transition to work for a minority-owned and operated ad agency called ICANN. And I worked for that founder for 1 year and decided to venture out on my own. Okay. And that was 32 years ago.
Now, was that here in
Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you were working in Los Angeles for Baxter.
Oh, I was working for Baxter from Seattle to L.A., Minneapolis, and then back to L.A. So I did all of that with Baxter.
Sure, sure. Okay, great. So you started your own company.
Yep, 1990, September 1st.
Okay. Tell us about that.
Well, it was real simple. I had made a decision. It didn't matter whether it was a Fortune 500 or a small minority-owned business. I needed to be on my own.
Okay, and so you found the company. Mm-hmm. Was that Lagrant?
Lagrant Communications was the first company I started in 1990, yes.
Okay.
And the focus was strictly the African-American consumer market. And as you know, living in California, the largest market that's racially diverse is the Latino market. And many of my clients came to me and says, Kim, we really like for you to pivot and add the Latino component to your portfolio. And I did.
Okay. But tell us about what was involved in starting your company as far as financing and having contacts and people to call upon.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me be real clear, because I think my journey is different than most. And let me tell you the why. I already had a strong business background. I already had an undergrad and grad degree in business. I had worked for a Fortune 200. I had worked for a small business, and I was brought in as the general manager to grow the business. So for me, I had a good background in launching my own business. And I will tell you, money was not the option. I never went out for a loan, because what I did, I tapped into my retirement, pulled the money out of the retirement, and started my business, and then wound up paying that money back to not only my retirement, but also to the company, because my CPA indicated that the money I loaned to the company, that company owes you that money back plus interest. Sure. And it was a joy when she said that to me 11 years later.
Yeah, no, you had a good CPA, no doubt.
She was a wonderful human being. Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about some of the ups and downs that you experienced.
Well, I'll start with the first. If you recall, 1990 was the beginning of a recession. So I tell people I have survived 3, soon to be 4 recessions, because recessions typically come every 10 years. So if you start 1990, the next one is 2000. If you recall the big bubble, the tech bubble, I was a part of that.
Exactly.
The next one was supposed to be what? 2010. We didn't get it 2010. Do you recall when we got it? 2008. That was the big, that impacted all businesses,
no doubt.
Small and large. The difference is small businesses, it didn't impact us until 2 years later, because there's a lag model with small business as opposed to the big companies, because as soon as that hit September of 2008, most of the big corporations started laying off people. I didn't have an impact on my business until 2 years later.
You just put that in perspective, because the same thing happened with my business a little behind the 2008 curve.
We're typically always behind the ball.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good point. So you survived the downs, and how did you get engaged in the many? Well, before we leave Lagrant, I was looking for some rankings and some statistics in order to prepare for the interview with you, and I didn't find those, but I was of the understanding that Lagrant may be among the top one or two black-owned communication companies in the country. Is that accurate?
No, it is not. I'm probably would go on the record and say I'm probably one of the top 20 in the country. I'm probably one of the top 5 on the West Coast.
Okay.
Now, the difference with my organization, unlike others, I'm an integrated model. So we do both. We do advertising, marketing, and PR. So you have some that are just PR agencies, and you have some that are advertising agencies. I'm an integrated model because I built my career around the IMC model.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. And what are some of the pluses and minuses of selecting that model?
Well, I would only focus on the pluses because there are no minuses because at the end of the day, our industry continues to evolve. And if you're truly going to be effective to your clients, you have to have the skills of all of those because to solve a communication problem, it's going to require probably a 30-second TV spot or a 60-second radio spot in addition to some grassroots. If you're doing grassroots marketing, that is not marketing. That's more on the PR side. That's community relations. So if you understand that what I refer to the 360 approach, you're going to be in the best interest to your clients.
Okay. And so sounds like clients have gravitated toward the company. Are you privately held? You're privately held.
I own 100% shares of the corporation. I'm privately held. Yes.
Tell us what you can tell us about the numbers.
Well, we're about a $20 million agency. Now, I will tell you, COVID and the killing of George Floyd has been the biggest beneficiaries to all 3 of my enterprises.
Yes.
All 3. The California Department of Public Health is my largest client, and it's been a client on and off over the last 32 years and has been one of my stellar ones because my background is in healthcare.
Right, and full disclosure here, the 99.3 is a beneficiary of that as well.
That is indeed, yes.
So we love Lagrant.
And we are very happy to be partnered with your station as well.
Yes, yeah. So Kim, what's how did you get engaged, and what's your motivation for not only the other companies that you've created, but the board leadership that you're involved with?
Well, the second company, which is the Lagrant Foundation, which is a not-for-profit. So my bookends I refer to as Lagrant Communications and KLH & Associates are for-profits. How I came about with the not-for-profit was really stipulated from a conversation I had with the West Coast Bureau Chief for PR Week, Julia Hood, and we were having a discussion about the lack of racial diversity in the business. And I noticed my voice going up, and I noticed that I've always been passionate about doing something to change the industry. And I heard myself complaining. And one of the many things I don't do well with are those who complain. I'm more interested, here's the problem. Share with me the thoughts to solve the problem. So I said, Julia, I got to go. And she said, Kim, what did I say? And I said, Julia, you didn't say anything. I need to go. I got off the phone, had a conversation with my CPA and my attorney, my corporate attorney, and I raised what I was wanting to do. And I remember my CPA clearly, Robin Elliott, she said, Kim, it sounds like a separate business. I said, really, at this time, I'm not focused on the separate business. I'm just focused, here's the problem, this is what I want to do. And literally, 1998, I started the Lagrant Foundation.
Okay.
So next year is starting, it will be celebrating 25 years in business, and it is truly my labor of love, and is my legacy.
What are some of the kinds of things that you support and some of the efforts that the foundation has championed?
What we affectionately call the Lagrant Foundation is TLF. TLF has 4 pillars. One is scholarship. So in 2023, we'll be awarding $250,000 to 100 racially diverse kids across the country.
That's outstanding.
Number 2 is career development workshops. Number 3, which means more to me than anything, is talent acquisition. And that is getting racially diverse kids placed, because at the end of the day, getting a degree from, for example, Cal State Dominguez Hills, if you're coming out of Cal State Dominguez Hills with a degree and not having a job, what's the whole purpose?
Right.
So what I care more than anything else is taking a kid coming out of Cal State Dominguez Hills, or right here in your backyard, Cal State Channel Islands, and putting them in the workforce.
Right.
And the fourth pillar is mentorship program. So those are the 4 pillars of the foundation.
Okay, that's outstanding. Now, we have KLH and Associates as well. So how does that fit into the picture?
Well, that's an executive search firm. And that executive search firm came about. I was sitting in my office one day and I got a phone call from a dear friend to this very day, Gwen Fisher, whose husband was the West Coast bureau chief for Black Enterprise. And I had put her name forward for a role with Merck, which sits in White Plains Station, New Jersey. And she called and says, Kim, I want to thank you. My husband and I and my newborn will be relocating from Los Angeles to New Jersey. And I said, Gwen, I couldn't be happier with you. Good luck. Next thing you know, within 45 minutes, got another phone call from another person I had referred to an executive search firm. And they were also relocating from Houston to, I believe, Chicago because of a referral I made. And I said, wait a minute, something's not right here. I'm making referrals to the top 4 executive search firms, which are Russell Reynolds, Spencer Stewart, Huggles and Struggles, and
Korn Ferry.
Korn Ferry, which is the world's largest. And I said, something's not right with this picture. I started doing the calculations. If this was my search, what they were getting, and I wasn't even getting a thank you. So what I did, I called a meeting with all 4 plus 2 privately held ones, Burker McClayton out of Los Angeles and Heyman & Associates out of New York. And at the end of the day, Byron, all 6 said the exact same thing to me. And that was, Kim, if you want running your other 2 enterprises, I would hire you tomorrow, which was a buzzword. They weren't necessarily interested in partnering with me because I didn't ask to be hired.
Right.
I asked to partner with them on racial diversity in the C-suite. And I decided to start my business. So that's what I did. 2011 years ago, I started the executive search firm, and I'm telling you, it has been an incredible journey there.
No doubt, no doubt. Of course, that's my field as well, and actually have done quite a bit of work in the life sciences area as well. But so how do you integrate the efforts through the foundation compared to the efforts with the search firm?
Well, each 3 enterprises are very different. They're 3 separate P&Ls, 3 separate staff. So there is no staff that crosses over except for my vice president of finance. She crosses over all 3 of those enterprises. Nobody else does. But how do I integrate it is the foundation, if we've been around for 25 years next year, you can imagine those who were getting scholarships in 1990 when we started awarding scholarships, they've been practicing for the last 22 years. So they are literally available for my executive search firm. So for example, Jessica Shee was the first big scholarship recipient in 1999 as a student at UCLA, majoring in comms. The head of communications for Verizon approached me and says, Kim, I need to retain you to find a director of marketing for us. And I wound up sourcing candidates, and Jessica Shee, which happens to be from the foundation, wound up taking on that job.
That's a very good business judgment. No doubt, no doubt. Well, Kim, let's take a little pause here and remind everyone that you're listening to Business Leadership with Action, and we're coming to you from the studios of 99.3 FM here on the campus at Oxnard College in the city of Oxnard, California. And we're here with our guest, Mr. Kim Hunter, and a very well-regarded and profitable and well-known executive. And he's sharing with us some of his experience and some of his lessons learned as an entrepreneur. And I guess we'd have to, if we're putting labels on you, we could call you a philanthropist as well with your foundation doing such good work.
Yes, it's definitely my labor of love and a pride and joy.
Well, with that being the case, you've developed these companies. About how many employees do you have?
I have 14 employees across all 3 organizations.
Across all 3, okay, and doing $20 million.
That's on the agency side.
Okay, aggregate.
Yes. It's going to be a little bit more than that because, again, you have 3 separate companies, you have 3 separate P&Ls.
So 30?
No, I would not say 30, probably closer to 25.
Okay. Well, that's great. And we asked you these because our listeners, they want to learn and grow from the experience of successful persons like yourself. As someone who has developed business to the level that you have, do you have a clear-cut management philosophy or a leadership style that you can articulate to our listeners?
Sure. My management style is real simple. I give clear direction, clear expectations, clear guidelines, and a timeline. That has been my mantra for almost 40 years. And so next year will mark 40 years of my career.
Now, how did you come across that philosophy?
To be frank with you, it's probably what I articulate all the time. And I understand if I were an employee getting direction from my supervisor, I want it to be clear and concise and with a specific deadline for me to meet or exceed.
Now, has that been successful in developing employees that have stayed with the company long term, or how in terms of your the success of your strategy? Obviously, you've driven the companies to great success. How about your staff? Any long-term employees?
Yes, I'm very proud. Keisha Brown is my president of my agency. She's been with me 27 of my 32 years. The only job she has ever had is coming out of Howard University is working for me. Okay. And she is my legacy. She is the heir apparent to the company.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So she's truly a pride and joy of mine. I mean, look, we, like any other organization, it's like Wall Street. You have your ups and your downs. But KB is what I call her. She's been with me through thick and thin. And it's her baby. She has done a remarkable job. She's been a wonderful student, and she is a pride and joy of mine, and I'm very proud to see where she is. She's very happy working for a minority-owned and operated company, and she's very happy reporting to a black man.
Outstanding. What can you tell our listeners and viewers are important things that they should incorporate into their careers to be able to allow them to grow and be successful as you have been?
Probably the most basic is being a hard worker. And when I'm often asked, Kim, what makes you successful today? I go back to the fundamentals of being a baby boomer, and that is working hard. It's in my DNA. I will say it's not necessarily the DNA of Gen Zs and millennials, but I will tell you working hard is part of my DNA. And I try to instill that into the younger generation. Now, good or bad, that necessarily doesn't always come across. But I tell people the ability to write and speak, you can write your ticket. Because if you can communicate your message and communicate what you want, you'll go very far. And have a drive. Be a voracious reader. I still read every day, both digitally and hard copy, a lot of publications because I'm a big believer. The more I know, the better I can be of value to others.
Sure. And those are great. So if I can summarize that, hard work, reading, and keeping up to date. And what's the third one?
Well, keeping up to date, you have to evolve because with the marketplace, it's always changing and you got to pivot. So you got to be flexible. You got to be nimble.
You got to be flexible. Have you, within your reading, have you assimilated any management or leadership philosophies that have been influential?
There are a couple business leaders. I pull pieces from all of them, and I probably will focus on more of the ones that I view to be very successful business people that have made mistakes and lessons learned. I look at Steve Jobs, who is the founder of Apple. I look at Bill Gates, who's the founder of Microsoft. I look at people like Warren Buffett, who is the founder of Berkshire Hathaway, which people don't realize is a compilation of a lot of businesses that including Geico, I mean, literally. And then we're talking about other organizations like See's Candy. People don't realize that that is a copulation of several companies as part of Berkshire Hathaway. And then when you look at people like Earl Graves, who started Black Enterprise, and then people who necessarily weren't entrepreneurs that were business people, because I always recommend to all racially diverse people, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And when I hear people say, Kim, I want to get together with you and talk about entrepreneurship, the first light bulb that comes off is, why? Because entrepreneurs do. Right. They don't ask. So if you got to ask me what it's like to be an entrepreneur, you're not ready to be an entrepreneur. Because when I made a decision to leave, walk away from corporate America, as well as a small minority-owned business, I made a decision to take all the risks associated with it and would never articulate, oh, I have all the freedom in the world to do what I want. When you're an entrepreneur, it's 24/7, and I'm good with 24/7.
Right. Well, that's certainly a great story to share and a great philosophy that has certainly worked well for you. I was noticing that you're labeled as a key influencer in the communications industry. You've received several awards. And how do you feel that view of you has impacted the how you have impacted other people, how they look to you as for your experience and your accomplishment?
Well, Byron, let me be real clear. I'm humbled to get any award and very proud of the achievements. But I have reached a point in my career, I really don't care about awards. I have declined 4 awards in the last 18 months because it's not about me. It's about the next generation. I have no place to put awards. I'm more interested in the next generation of talent. That's what matters more to me than anything else.
Wow. Now, for our radio listeners, you missed the look on his face when he described that. But that's interesting to turn down awards and the recognition that you have undoubtedly deserve.
But I challenge all successful entrepreneurs, business like-minded people, community leaders. We have an obligation to reach back and pull people forward. It's probably one of my most disappointing views of successful people is that you can't take this with you. At some point, you will die, and your legacy is what carries on. And for me, what I care more than anything else is the next generation of talent, and that's where I'm putting all of my energy and resources, is building the next generation of talent.
And that's very commendable, and that's the primary work of the foundation.
Correct. You got it.
You
Absolutely.
said that's where your heart is.
That's where my love is. Yes.
So good. In any other thoughts you can share with us along the lines of your leadership and management style?
I truly believe finding an outlet. For me, I have several outlets. That is, I love to travel. As I mentioned earlier, I've been to 6 of the 7 continents. You probably can imagine one continent I've not been to. Not that I'm not interested. It's just because of circumstances. Getting to Antarctica, it requires a lot to get there. But at some point in my journey, I will get there.
Right.
And also, I love being around people that are different from me, because I think that is probably what drives me. Having people around me with the same perspective really doesn't challenge my thinking, doesn't challenge who I am as an individual. So I tell people, put yourself in uncomfortable situations. And I use this model that elected officials I've learned from. When you look at an elected official entering a room, they usually stand at the back of the room, assess the room, and then do a beeline. So if you've ever been in a big banquet and there's an elected official there or multiple ones, they will walk around a table and shake everybody's hand. And I have learned to do that because it pushes you out of the comfortability zone. So getting a break in your work, even though I may be considered a workaholic by many, I do find avenues to separate myself, and part of it is being in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is my second home. I live in the second largest city in the country, but being in the Santa Barbara region, better known as the American Riviera, allows me to detach. I love to hike. So I go hiking at many of the state parks here. I have an annual pass for California parks. So for me, that rocks my world.
Okay. Now, do you have a family? Are you single?
I do. I am married. Okay. I'm very happily married. I've been married for the last 7 years because the law went in effect in 2015, and I got married in Santa Barbara at the courthouse.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Now, we're going to take a break in a moment. I make sure I try to bring out for our audience. You talked about those core values that you try to instill upon other people and that have guided you. Can you take that to the next level in terms of something our audience may be able to take from that? Is there any follow on, or is it all self-fulfilling if you apply those philosophies? I don't know how well I articulated that, but I think from those simple core values, there's something a little more profound there.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's profound. What I do believe, a lot of it starts with your inner self. You got to be confident. You got to be, and if you're not, find avenues to become more comfortable. And for me, when I'm not comfortable, I seek out others that can give me skills or tools in my toolbox that make me be more comfortable or successful. And I gravitate to people who are different from me. And I just challenge all your listeners that if you don't know, ask. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Now, I will tell you this. If you can find that answer via Google, then you should do it. If you can't, then you should ask people the question. Okay,
there he is. Kim Hunter's Pearls of Wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Byron K. Ward, and you're listening to Business Leadership with Action. And we want to remind you that Community Advocacy Coalition and 99.3 FM have the big concert, the big benefit concert, commemorating the studio naming of the Greg Ward Studio here in the CAC facility on the campus at Oxnard College. For that event, we have 3 different genres of music that will be presented. The concert is going to feature a gospel choir that was put together specifically for this event, and it's comprised of individuals and members of various churches that have come together to recognize Greg Ward, because he was very influential not only in helping us establish our radio station here, but in his church community. We have, to drop a few names, Sister Bobby Richards she is the one that's coordinating and leading that group. Sister Linda Brown is going to be a featured vocalist with the choir. I call her the First Lady of Gospel Music in Oxnard and Ventura County. She always tells me that's not the case. She's so humble, but she's always a joy to be associated with any presentation. First Lady Danielle Keys, who is has a great voice. Every time you start naming people, you leave out someone. But the other 2 lead vocalists I'm aware of are ministers Sir Derek Ross, as well as Brother Carl Kelly. So you want to make sure that you come out for the gospel choir. We also have a very nice jazz ensemble put together by Fundi Lejean. He's leading that group, and it's actually a 20-piece ensemble. That's worth coming out for on its own. And then our feature group is a local band called House Arrest. And those three genres, House Arrest is primarily R&B and funk and dance music. So we're covering the three genres that we play here on 99.3 FM. And it's about the culture that we try to do these type of events. So again, that is Saturday, November 12th, 3 p.m. Tickets are $25 and $40. They're available. Again, come to our website here at 993fm.com, and that's 99THREEFM.com. The CAC website, which is the-cac.org, and also on Ticket Sauce at 99THREEFMconcert.ticketsauce.com. We hope you'll join us there. But now back to our very interesting guest, Kim Hunter. Kim.
Yes, sir.
Let's bring this down to the stretch.
May I make a comment? I would like to offer any listener who's not able to attend the event tomorrow that I will subsidize several families. So the budget I will give you is $500. So do the math, 25 divided by 500, I will subsidize, but I want this to be for both families and non-families. So if there's anybody out there who's interested in attending and do not have the funds, I will subsidize that.
Okay, and anyone that's interested can reach out to us. I'll give, let's see, what's the best way to reach out? You can email us at info@the-cac.org. Again, that's info@the-cac.org. Or you can text me at 805-890-8998. That's very generous of you, Kim, and very much appreciate it. We appreciate you supporting us here in the community and the work we're trying to do with CAC and our one of 4 black-owned FM radio stations in the state. I'm sure you know that statistic.
I do.
Again, Kim Hunter and his generosity is greatly appreciated. But Kim, what's next for you in your career? You're only 61 years young.
That is very true. I plan on continue to work. My intent is to focus on the latter 2 of my children, I refer to it as, and have Keisha Brown, who is my president, really take that on over the next couple years. But I really want to focus on the latter 2 because both of them are really building the next generation of talent. I'm very active politically, both on a local and national level. You probably are fully aware of the mayor's race. We will know today between 4 and 5 p.m.
Yes.
who will be the next mayor of Los Angeles.
Los Angeles mayor race.
Yes,
hotly contested.
Yes, it is. But I'm very much engaged with that race, and I will go on the record, and I think Karen Bass would concur. I encouraged Karen in September of 2021 that she should strongly consider running. Karen is my congresswoman. She's coming out of Congress, obviously, because she gave up that seat to run for the mayoral race. So today will mark a very pivotal time in Los Angeles history. If, in fact, she is the winner, she will be the first African-American female in the history, and the first female ever to be mayor of Los Angeles.
Yes, and Karen's had an interesting career and legacy of her own. That was a tough campaign from what we were viewing up here in Ventura County.
It does indeed. I mean, when you have, and I know Rick and I served at the pleasure of the mayor under Dick Reardon after Tom Bradley. Rick is capable and very much loves the city of Los Angeles. But I was very clear who I wanted to be mayor of Los Angeles, and that was definitely Karen Bass.
That's great, and that's a that's a good message as well about who you are and you walking the talk, so to speak. That's clearly come out in our conversation. You said you're a great reader.
Mm-hmm.
What title can you share with our audience that you think you would be a good read?
Well, I'll say one that probably would not necessarily make anyone like feeling good at the end of the book, but it's called The Last Lecturer. And I have read that book multiple times. I'll just give you high level. It is a gentleman who is dying, and what he has left behind is leave something, some legacy for people to remember who you are and the impact positively you can have on society. So if it's the one book I can recommend to anybody to read, and it's based on a true story, it's called The Last Lecture.
By?
I don't recall the person's last name, but it's easy with everybody having access to Google. It's easy to look it up, or Amazon.
Exactly. And in your long career and successful career, is there, in my career, I've always learned and benefited from the experiences I've had that have not been successful than the ones that have been successful. Can you think of something that you would like to share that was a very great lesson to you?
Well, I will tell you, there's many. There is not any one that stands out. But one of the things I would like to leave behind is that you can learn from a lot of people. And while people have their ups and downs, in reality, don't we want to have more ups than downs? So if you can learn from somebody's down to make sure you can mitigate that, you should do it. And for me, I have watched a lot of people over my 40-year career who have made some tactical errors, and I made a decision how to avoid that wherever I can.
Absolutely.
So my thing is, yes, like anybody else, you have your ups and downs of life in your career. But one of the things I'm real clear on, if I can learn from somebody else, the good, bad, and the ugly, I'm going to do it.
All right. Right from Kim Hunter. Kim, as we close on our session today, it's certainly been an enriching show. A lot of depth in your wisdom you shared with us. Is there a single quote or saying that has guided you that you may want to share with our audience?
It wouldn't be a quote. It would be something that's simple, and I believe in the KISS philosophy, and that's keep it simple, stupid, and that is stay focused. You will have many naysayers, you will have many roadblocks, but if you stay true to yourself and stay focused, you will survive and persevere.
All right. Spoken from a great businessman. Stay focused. Kim, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Any last thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm passionate about this region. I think this region has a lot of potential. And I think agriculture, which many of us don't talk a lot about, that is what drives a lot of us. I'm still amazed when I'm driving the 101, whether it's Ventura, Santa Barbara, or St. Louis Obispo County, agriculture. That is our largest industry. And for those who are in the agriculture, I say thank you, because without you, I wouldn't have food on my plate.
You're absolutely right. And we share that common history in the executive search business. From a business standpoint, I am conscious of us being located here in the agricultural region. And there's a rich legacy of the Japanese locally engaged in the agricultural industry. there may be African Americans and other people of color, but I think that is a excellent area to pursue, for people to pursue careers. And this is no better place to engage in that. I was so glad. I'm a graduate of Central State University and HBCU back in Ohio. And Dr. Brandy Phillips is doing some great work in introducing the students at Central State to the agricultural industry. And I think that's just great work. So thank you for mentioning that.
And I want to definitely get a shout out to my Latino brothers and sisters who are the bread and butter of literally agriculture in this state. So I have no illusion about that. So thank you.
Well stated. And, you know, I'll just share that here at 99.3 and Community Advocacy Coalition, we have a rich history of partnering on like causes with our Latino brothers and sisters, no doubt about it. Matter of fact, in the ceremony yesterday, there was great representation by leaders in different areas who happen to be Latino heritage, as well as African American, obviously. So again, thank you so much. I want to remind our audience that this is Byron K. Ward presents Business Leadership with Action. And we're going to sign off and sign out.